What if Naruto had encountered Hinata, and instead of the initial shyness, there was a connection? As they become friends, certain events would lead to unfortunate circumstances, which would then eventually lead them into another situation where they would switch sides. This is what if Naruto and Hinata not only got together early, but became evil. This idea was suggested to me by the one, the only, your boy Oni, or Oni X. His card is right up here. And yeah, this is actually a series that directly parallels my What If Naruto and Hinata Got Together series. So if you want to see a similar baseline story where they are in fact good and a lot of things are completely different, click here. Also, apart from that, I would like to give a quick shout out to the channel members who are all listed here. And without further ado, I've wasted your time long enough. Roll that intro. Toby, a man of many mysteries, walks into a room similar to a common room, where the members of Beta Squad had settled. It's been a few days since their recruitment, but that's not much. But Pain, the leader, had already come up with a mission. He thinks of it as important enough to send out Beta Squad already. Whatever. As Beta Squad is briefed by Toby, a Zetsu would appear from a wall, explaining that he found the location. Toby, if only for a second, switched to a serious tone and asked the Zetsu where this location was. After saying so, we get a sum up of what this mission would entail. They had gotten information that the Sound Village had actually been constructed by Orochimaru, but they also know that he is not currently present in the land of rice paddies, as they could have tracked him to both not only the sand but the grass villages. So they know something might be going on, when the Zetsu would say that all these villages have one thing in common. They're gathering at the Leaf's tuning exams. Naruto would grit his teeth as he says, "Of course that bastard Orochimaru would try and destroy the Leaf before I could." With only a giggle from his mistress, if you could so call her, Hinata. She would come up and say that if Orochimaru was to try anything, they would surely kill him as the Akatsuki, right? But Toby goes back to his childish state as he says, "Well, if anything happens, we could ask Data-Raccoon to attack." Obviously, just playing into that Toby charade as he usually does. Then, as time progresses, we see that Beta Squad is now en route to the Leaf. They have their Akatsuki robes on with this weird straw hat. And as they border the Leaf, they could seemingly see the dome that covers it for sentry purposes. Everyone knows how this dome works. Only by casting the release jutsu would one be able to go in. But unluckily for them, Itachi knew this jutsu and could relay it to Naruto and Hinata, which he did, as they would break through the barrier, giving Beta Squad a clear entry into the Leaf. But on top of that, no one's expecting Beta Squad to take out someone as Orochimaru. They're actually there for a more interesting reason. They have reason to believe that the one-tailed Jinchuriki, Gara of the Sand, will be participating here, and that the Sand is planning something by sending someone that valuable. So, if the one-tails was to rampage, no one would bat an eye by them defeating it and taking it in. That is Beta Squad's mission: capture Gara of the Sand. On the other hand, we see an earlier meeting between the 10 main members of the Akatsuki, obviously Toby not included, as we see Pain debrief them on the situation that might happen in the Leaf. He would actually ask that Kisame and Itachi follow behind Beta Squad without being detected and take care of Orochimaru if possible. And they would only nod, as they would continue. Obviously, there's one member of the Akatsuki that stands out. He's not a part of the main Akatsuki nor Beta Squad. He's the one Beta Squad reports to. That would be Toby. Toby, he's not known by the members for the most part. There are 2, maybe 3 main members that know about him, being Pain himself, Konan, and Itachi. And obviously, Toby would be there not only to help Beta Squad if anything happens, but also the 2 main members of the Akatsuki, Kisame and Itachi. So, as we see, some big event is happening in the Leaf. It is called the Chunin exams. And it had already progressed, or it's about to progress, as Naruto and Beta Squad are to survey for now, and then hang out in the Leaf till the period is over. When they do try to observe the Chunin exams, they would soon realize that there are Anbu constantly surveying the area. They couldn't do much until later on, when they felt a large spike of energy. Energy they're all too familiar with, or at least Naruto and Hinata. Hinata would open her Byakugan and track the source of this energy, and it's exactly who they thought. It was Orochimaru. Why was he in the Leaf, and what was he doing in the Chunin exam area? Well, what exactly was happening is he was actually planning on taking a certain kid. One of his teammates would try and help him. These are the 3 kids that actually stood there during the Zabuza fight. And the black-haired one, when Naruto would question Zabuza, what are his abilities? Zabuza would say all he knows is that the boy is an Uchiha. And as Hinata's Byakugan hones in on Sasuke, she could see a concentrated amount of chakra in his eyes, so she merely nodded. It's similar to how Itachi looks when he activates the Sharingan. So Orochimaru is definitely after the Uchiha body. When Zabuza says, body? What do you mean? They said that they'll explain later. All they know now is that Orochimaru is after the Uchiha. More specifically, Itachi's younger brother. They might need to stop this from happening. When Zabuza asks why, Itachi had killed his clan and abandoned the place. Naruto would only let out one last remark. Itachi might have killed his clan, but he did it for the protection of this cursed village, and for the better future of his brother. As Zabuza would only nod and say, I understand. And for now, they have nothing to do. It's an entire month before anything would happen. But nothing to do is kind of on the fritz. They could obviously do recon for the Leaf. So, in this specific case, I would like to point out that there are changes within the Leaf structure with Naruto's absence. And Hinata's absence, of course. So there is currently one open spot on Team 7, which was filled by Kiba, meaning the only person who would have been a part of Team 8 would be Shino. And since one Genin and one Jonin wouldn't make any sense, basically my boy Shino just became a shinobi, a part of his own clan, and would go on missions with them. Meaning, unless there's actually an opportunity, he probably won't be able to go up to Chunin anytime soon. So, when we see it next, we also find out that Kiba had actually moved on in Naruto's place, and has that same grudge against Neji, not for Hinata's sake, but this time for the sake of the Rookie 9, or this year's Rookie 9. Because we all know Neji is a docile prick, and he's gonna say what he wants to. So when it comes down to it, Kiba wants to beat his ass because Kiba's the cocky one. Or at least that's my opinion about this situation. As we see, time has passed. Everyone went training, including Kiba. And obviously, now that the situation has changed, we can make arguments for that people like Kiba and Choji, if Choji had moved on, this is not clear, would be closer to their variants in the Sasuke retrieval arc than their variants in the Chunin exams because of that little extra nudge. Well, they're not too important right now, but later they will come into account more. But for now, we see the finals of the Chunin exams. Sasuke had been training with Kakashi and had his curse mark plugged for now. This is where our Akatsuki members can actually do something. They basically split into teams of two, Zabuza and Haku, and then Naruto and Hinata, basically sitting on two different sides of the stadium so that they could immediately follow Gara regardless of which direction he tries to run. So, when it came down to it, fairly similar to canon, the Chunin exams plays out, with the sole exception of it being Kiba that beats Neji. Kiba would have a tough time against Neji, especially against the palm rotation, since more or less it counters what exactly the Fang over Fang does. So, after some more time and just countless Fang over Fangs, Kiba is able to break through once and punch Neji in the face. This was enough to give Kiba that slight upper edge, since the Fang over Fang in this specific situation uses less chakra than the palm rotation, and he was able to physically drive through and eventually beat Neji, basically giving Neji a speech on how not to underestimate someone, and if his destiny was to be great, then what does that make Kiba's destiny? To be the best. Obviously, Neji doesn't think Kiba gonna be the best, so he instead drops his stand on destiny, and he would go on to try and basically become a better person, I guess. And this is where the interesting fight comes, at least in everyone's opinion, the interesting fight. And this is the fight between Sasuke and Gara. So when it comes down to the Sasuke and Gara fight, I'm going to be honest, it's almost copy-paste the canon fight. Just with him saying a lot of shit related to Kiba instead of a lot of shit related to Naruto. And as we move forward, we see that Sasuke basically pierces Gara, and when he creates that orb, we just see Hinata go, Naruto, he's doing it, as Naruto lets off a loud whistle displaced with chakra. Basically, this was to notify the other group, being Zabuza and Haku, that Gara is transforming. What exactly Hinata sees in this orb is a semblance of blue chakra in the middle and red chakra surrounding it, implying that Gara is transforming. When all of a sudden, a genjutsu is dropped by none other than Kabuto. Naruto and Hinata specifically are able to break out really quickly. Naruto because of his Jinchuriki stance, and Hinata because of her excellent chakra control and the fact that she's literally using the Byakugan. She can see she's in a genjutsu. Zabuza and Haku are null affected by this, and they only are delayed further than Naruto and Hinata by a bit, as Naruto and Hinata would chase after Gara and Sasuke. Zabuza and Haku, on the other hand, would hang back to help what is now the Rookie 6, since they're down in numbers and a lot could change. Zabuza would actually save Shikamaru from those 10 Sound Shinobi, and later on Haku would even fight off against both Kabuto and Tamari, only as backup of course, basically landing the final blows, dominating their own presences within this village. The Akatsuki seem to have a much different stance than they had originally. Originally they wanted to stay quiet as long as possible. Well, while we see Naruto and Hinata chase after Sasuke and Gara, Gara would all of a sudden turn back and start fighting with Sasuke. Obviously, Hinata's relaying what's happening through her side of the Byakugan, and eventually when they do catch up, Gara was about to land the blow that would inevitably knock Sasuke out. Naruto would obviously stop this attack just to flex a little in front of the person that's basically sought after by his most hated opponent, as Naruto says, "Oh, so you're weak too," as he turns around and just chops Sasuke on the neck. Gara had jumped back after his attack had been stopped and is currently transforming. Naruto isn't taking this though, and as his transformation process progresses, Naruto is one-sidedly beating on him, as Hinata would eventually step in herself. They're kind of just pinballing Gara up until the point where he's too big to do this with, and when he eventually fully transforms into the Shikaku, we see Naruto do something very interesting. He goes through hand signs and he says, "Summoning Jutsu, Geto Maza," as it's revealed that within the years that the Akatsuki had raised Naruto and Hinata, they had gained access to a summoning seal for the Geto Maza. They're not able to fully control it, at least not to its most capability, but it's a summoning nonetheless that can handle larger creatures. So, by Naruto channeling power from his seal and the Nine Tails into the Geto Maza, he's able to basically make it more powerful and eventually overpower Gara. He would eventually dispel the Geto Maza as he jumps over to Gara, knocking him out of the one-tailed state, basically explaining that, too bad, he was hated. Naruto and Hinata were also basically almost killed, and for the most part, they didn't even know why people were trying to kill them. At least Gara had some salvation, as Naruto knocks him out the final time, and the Akatsuki, or at least the 4 members of the Beta Squad that are present, disperse back to what we believe to be the same cave we saw in Shippuden. So when it comes down to it, the Geto Maza would reappear where it once was, with Pain basically nodding and thinking that it's a success, seeing the residual Nine-Tails chakra coming off of the Geto Maza. On the other hand, yes, it was successful. They did get Gara and they're on their way to the Akatsuki headquarters, as Zetsu would inform. On the other hand, the Orochimaru and Hiruzen fight will not be close to the same. When Kisame and Itachi appeared, there was a giant 4-walled seal barrier thing around this place, and with a quick scan of his Sharingan, Itachi would realize there's no way that him or Kisame can get in. But they do have another member of the Akatsuki that could get them in. As they swirl away and reappear inside of the dome, Itachi basically nods and says, "Thank you, Toby," as Toby would say, "No problem," fading back into the ground. Obviously, seeing this, Orochimaru, moments upon seeing these red clouded cloaks, would know exactly who this is. This is the Akatsuki. He would frantically look around as he would go through hand seals, summoning 2 coffins. The third would be stopped, as Hiruzen could read the labels on each coffin, one labeled first, the other one second, and he couldn't take chances if this was what he thought it was. And successfully, he stopped the 4th. These are obviously referencing the Hokage that would come out. Hiruzen would basically yell at his student and would get a thumbs up from his 2 benefactors, one being Kisame, as he would quickly throw his hat off, and the other, who is Itachi, who would do the same. Hiruzen would decide to go after Orochimaru, and just because of simplicity's sake, Kisame goes against Tobirama, and Itachi goes against Hashirama. Fire style user against the wood, and someone with the ability to absorb water against one of the greatest water usage. This is going to go well. And as we see, for the most part, it does. Basically, Hashirama and Tobirama would be sealed away as Hiruzen gives not his own life, but actually defeats Orochimaru. And because he can no longer control them because of his unconscious state, Hiruzen's able to perform simple seals to seal their bodies away. Yeah, that was pretty much the sound arc, or the sound invasion arc, I guess. As we see, Itachi would only nod at Hiruzen before him and Kisame would disappear once again, due to the help of Toby. And when we see them again, we see them arrive at the Akatsuki headquarters in said same swirl. Pain would ask if it's done, with only them nodding, and moments after, they see Naruto and Hinata, Zabuza, and Haku arrive with their target Gara, who would, in this time, currently be put as being absorbed by the Geto Maza, and sadly, he's not going to survive as he initially did, for the fact that Naruto, Chio, and others aren't after him, and even if they were, they would believe that they were in the leaf. This unintentionally causes a great commotion between the leaf and sand, as the leaf is believed to have the one-tails, and the sand is believed to have attacked the leaf, and even trying to use their tailed beasts to destroy the leaf. So, when it comes down to it, there is currently a mini-war factually going on between the 2 villages. Gaara's previous sensei would be elected the new Kazekage, and Gara marked missing. Obviously, the leaf thinks that the sand is lying, but they in actuality are not. So, what is this going to change going forward? Not much, actually. All it's actually going to change is the person Jiraiya ends up taking for training, who is no one. There's no Naruto, meaning Tsunade is not coming back to the village. Jiraiya didn't train anyone. He's actually looking for the Akatsuki because they believe that these people had something to do with Naruto's disappearance. Obviously, they have no proof, but Jiraiya is willing to take any league he could get. So, his pursuit of the Akatsuki would have started now. On the other hand, the next major arc we would see, or next major battle I guess we would see, would be Kiba versus Sasuke. Obviously, Sasuke would prepare. This is still the rooftop battle, just with Naruto being replaced with Kiba. Kiba would obviously want to do the Fang over Fang, running towards Sasuke, and Sasuke coming down with the Chidori. Kiba would prepare to basically do the dual Fang over Fang with Akamaru to hit Sasuke from the sides. Sasuke cannot tell which is which and is prepared to hit whichever one with the Chidori. Kakashi would step in, throwing Sasuke at the container while kicking both Kiba and Akamaru away. He'd have a speech about how that's not a Chidori size aimed at a comrade, that's one aimed at an enemy. He could have killed Kiba, so on and so forth, as he also scolds Kiba for basically letting this happen in the first place. He just glare at Sakura as he has no words for the one who's supposed to be the responsible one of the group. But when it comes down to it, this is where we see Sasuke and Kakashi's conversation and the sound for trying to gather, obviously, Sasuke. All of you might be wondering, Ayo, didn't Itachi, Hiruzen, and Kisame kill Orochimaru? Well, they did. But most of you forgot about what we call curse seals. He was actually able to use the sickened body of Kimimaro to grow himself back out. Meaning he has a solid 3 years before he needs to take another body. Meaning we could still go into the 3-year time skip with Sasuke training under Orochimaru. And I'd like to point out, in this case, there's no Naruto. But who we will be adding is actually Lee. Lee would go along just because they wouldn't want him to. Like, he would end up chasing after Sasuke instead of, chasing after Kimimaro, since he's no longer here. His sickened state was heavily progressed by Orochimaru exiting his seal and would end up dying prematurely. On the other hand, Sasuke would have a final battle with Lee, who's able to break his limits and push all the way up to the 4th gate, but would end up semi-paralyzed again. Obviously, this time he didn't have the option to be healed by Tsunade, but what option he did have is to be taken on as a student by Jiraiya, who had actually wanted to help Naruto, but obviously since Naruto had not been in the Leaf, he had helped stop the attack between Gara and Lee, sparing Lee's back some pain and giving him the abilities to appear here in this Final Valley version of mine, as on the other hand, now he's pretty much hurt. Jiraiya, on the other hand, offers to take him to one of the world's greatest healers, Tsunade. Jiraiya promises that he would help Lee progress his 8 gates as far as possible and would even test the theory, a nature energy theory. Well, that's focusing enough on the Konoha part. Let's get back to the interesting part, the Akatsuki. At this point, the Akatsuki had actually started making more moves. As we go into the 3-year time skip, we'd see them gather a lot more tailed beasts than they did initially. In this case, they would actually gain 1 tailed beast for each year, and they're actually able to claim the 2nd tails. Obviously, the 3rd tails was under Obito's control, or Tobi's control, so it was easy once again for them to claim. And then, obviously, the 4 tails, which was a rogue, which basically was not that hard to get. Like, he wasn't in a village, no one was helping him. And currently, they are in pursuit of the 5 tails. Obviously, all the nations being in a panic because their tailed beasts are going missing, they would obviously start pointing fingers at each other, which, just like the Leaf and Sand had been doing for the last 3 years, would basically cause war between villages. And as it comes down to it, this would cause another world war, or the 4th Great Shinobi War. How is this going to change the terrain of Naruto and its future, with the Akatsuki obviously going after the tailed beast, who are currently being used in a war that they're not participating in? What will having most of the Akatsuki currently present do in a war like this? And how would Naruto, Hinata, and the rest of Beta Squad change the Akatsuki's outcome? Well, you gotta wait till next time to find out. And if you haven't yet, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Also, remember to add this to your favorites. So without further ado, this has been your boy sixmysta. Peace out.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Subscribe for more.
Yada yada does it.